In today's video, we're going to be talking about the linebacker depth chart for the New England Patriots. The linebacker position is the best position on the New England Patriots, in my opinion, followed shortly by the defensive backs and then tight ends as the third best positional group. But this linebacker group is solid, guys. We have solid starters, and then we also have solid developmental players behind them. It's good for years to come, I think, the linebacker position. Even after these starters are retired out of the league, we have a solid lineup of guys that are lined up right behind them, ready to go and eventually have their time to shine in the year's future. Starting out, you can see we have four different positions here. These can be mismatched, but this is the guys that I think are starting caliber, and this is my depth chart for the linebackers, guys. First guy on the list here, and he could be the right outside linebacker or the left outside linebacker. I just know he's going to be one of the two starting outside linebackers. I have him here as the LOLB, but he could be the ROLB. Matt Judon. And look, this is a guy who is a veteran. He's currently 28 years old. He's going to be 29 actually pretty soon. And his two previous seasons have been his best seasons, and he actually made the Pro Bowl both of those two previous years, 2019 and 2020. In 2019, he had 9.5 sacks, and then in 2020, he had 6 sacks. He had 54 combined tackles in 2019 and also 14 tackles for a loss. And then he had 50 combined tackles last season in 2020 and 9 tackles for a loss. 33 quarterback hits in 2019 and 21 in 2020. So he is coming off of two very solid seasons, and at this point, he could be one of our better linebackers on our team, maybe even the best. I mean, it cannot be ruled out. His value can't be underestimated that he had for the Ravens, and I do expect him to be one of the best linebackers on our team at least. Now, we're not going to be going by talent here. We're going to be going by position. So we're starting out with the guy that will likely be behind Matthew Judon, and that's going to be Josh Uche. And he had his rookie season last year. Didn't get too much playing time, but I've been hearing in practice he has been lighting it up and being one of the best players on the team. So I think he could get a significant amount of situational playing time this season if that is the case. And that would be really, really cool to see. And if we have a departure of any sort on the starting linebackers or perhaps an injury, unfortunately, if that was to occur, I think Josh Uche could be the one to step up in the position, especially if there's an outside linebacker that goes out. I think Josh Uche is the guy that would get the starting role in that case. Now, at middle linebacker number 1, we have Dontta Hightower. And of course, we know he didn't play last season, and we didn't even know if he would come in this season. We were kind of worried that perhaps he was going to step away from the game of football, but he has been at practice now. He actually, I think it was perhaps Thursday or Friday, he was at his first practice of the year, so he showed up, and that was a really, really good thing. And I guess his last season he had was 2019, and he actually made the Pro Bowl that year for the second time in his career. He had 5.5 sacks, 13 quarterback hits, and 71 combined tackles. It is likely that Dontta Hightower is going to be our best linebacker on our team. If it's not him, then it will likely be Matthew Judon. So that's probably the top two guys at the linebacker position on our team. Now, behind him is Raekwon McMillan. And this guy's career is very interesting. He's only been in the league for 3 years. He started out with the Dolphins for his first 2 years in 2018 and 2019, where in his rookie season he had 105 combined tackles, a solid rookie season, followed by 72 combined tackles his next year with the Dolphins. He had 5 tackles for a loss and then 3 tackles for a loss in those 2 respective years as well. And he had 2 forced fumbles and 1 fumble return in his rookie season. In his entire career, he has not had a sack, which is very interesting for a linebacker. But that brings his career total with the Miami Dolphins to 177 combined tackles in just 2 seasons, 104 solo tackles, which is crazy enough, and then 8 tackles for a loss. So he had a very solid 2-year career with the Dolphins. Then he gets traded in 2020 to the Las Vegas Raiders, and it kind of just drops off. He played in all 16 games, but he only started in 4, and I think that's a significant reason for why his numbers dropped off. He only had 27 combined tackles in all 16 games that he played in and 1 tackle for a loss. Obviously, this is a very disappointing season that he had with the Las Vegas Raiders. and I think we got him for a bargain deal. So I would like to see. I think if we give him more playing time, he's going to actually show a lot more numbers like he had with the Dolphins. However, if we give him more of a very limited playing time, if any, I think we're going to see a lot more of an unproductive player like we saw from the Raiders. That should be obvious. The less time you give him, the worse the stats are going to look. The more time you give him, the better the stats are going to look, no matter how talented the player is. I think he is a very talented player, especially at the middle linebacker position. A solid tackler that just is good for 50 to 100 tackles per season combined. Uh, and I really feel like we could be getting a good player here, really. So I would be curious to see if maybe he will get some playing time as well, especially if we get one of the middle linebackers injured. I could see Raekwon McMillan playing. Now, our next guy is Jawan Bentley, and we drafted him a couple of years ago, or he might have been undrafted. No. I think he was drafted, but he was a really, really good player straight from the first preseason, if I remember correctly, back in 2018. He was kind of turning some heads, and then he got injured very early that season, unfortunately, and he showed a lot of promise. So the following season, he had 44 combined tackles, and he played in all 16 games, but he only started in 2. That is very solid numbers for starting in 2 games. And then last season, obviously, Dontta Hightower opted out, so we got to see a full season with Jawan Bentley basically being the starting middle linebacker. And he had 91 combined tackles, 1.5 sacks. He had 3 tackles for a loss and 3 QB hits. So that was a very productive and very solid season there from Jawan Bentley. The first season we got to see him start. I do feel like Raekwon McMillan and Jawan Bentley are very similar in value if we get the Dolphins version of Raekwon McMillan, which is only a 50-50 shot. I think there could be a chance that Raekwon McMillan just has dropped off and we could get more of the Vegas version of him. And in which case, I think Jawan Bentley is clearly the number 2 middle linebacker. But if we get a very talented version of Raekwon McMillan, back like what he was like for the Dolphins, I could see that being a competition between Raekwon and Jawan for that second middle linebacker position, playing alongside Dontta Hightower in certain situations. So that could be a very interesting preseason situation or practice situation. Behind Jawan Bentley is Issac Jeanins, and this is another guy coming off of his rookie season for us, and he could be a productive player. He has a little bit more of that side-to-side speed, so I have him listed as a middle linebacker, and then Josh Uche more on the outside because he's more of a pass rush specialist. He can play in coverage, but he's going to be a much better pass rusher most of the time. And Issac Jeanins is going to be a more coverage guy. Pretty good at pass rush, but nothing like Josh Uche, who was one of the most productive pass rushers in college football when he was there. He was more of a situational player there for Michigan, but very, very good when he did play. Now, for the right outside linebacker, we have Kyle Van Noy, and this is a story I just love. I mentioned him in yesterday's video where we went over the top players I'm most excited for on defense. He was one of those guys. We had him for 4 seasons with the Patriots, where in those 4 seasons he had 221 combined tackles, 21 tackles for loss, 35 quarterback hits, and 16 sacks. Surely that was the best time period of his career. And then he went to the Miami Dolphins last season, only for 1 year because he is back, where he had 69 combined tackles, 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, and 10 tackles for a loss. We're getting a very good player back, a very productive linebacker, who basically is coming off of a season where he played as good as he played for the Boogeymen back in 2019. So we're basically expecting to get that same player back that we had in 2019, guys, which if that doesn't make you excited, I don't know what will, because we're likely getting a really great linebacker here on the other side as well. So to close things out, we have 2 players behind him at the right outside linebacker position, one of which is Chase Winovich, a more situational player for us. Chase Winovich, I feel like he could be a defensive end, so in which case I don't obviously think he would be listed as a linebacker. I see him more as a defensive end, so I could see him playing, while all 4 of these starting players are playing, I could see Chase Winovich still playing at that more defensive end position. He had last season 48 combined tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 12 quarterback hits. Both his rookie season and last season, he had 5.5 sacks. That brings him to a total of 11 career sacks. And he had 1 forced fumble last season as well, and 1 interception, which is very interesting. And he played more of a defensive end role last season, and I do think that will be the case. I have him listed as a linebacker because technically he is still listed as a linebacker, but I really strongly feel like he should be moved to the defensive end position. He doesn't play like a linebacker anyway. He is a pure pass rusher, and I feel like that's what we need to move him towards is more beefing it up a little bit and moving more towards that defensive end, especially with all the depth we have at the linebacker position. It would be better to have Kyle Van Noy, Jawan Bentley, Dontta Hightower, Matt Judon, and Chase Winovich on the field at the same time, which if Chase Winovich is a linebacker, that cannot be the case. But if he is a defensive end, we can certainly make that happen. Finally, behind Chase Winovich, we have Ronnie Perkins, the rookie we drafted this season from Oklahoma. The interesting thing is he played more of a defensive end / defensive line position there for Oklahoma. But right now he's listed at 6'2", 253 pounds. So if he's going to play more of a defensive end role, we're going to need him to beef up, obviously, by about 20 pounds or more to be considered a solid-sized defensive end. Or he can stay at the same weight and probably play a really good outside linebacker type role. I'm just going to go over, he had 3 seasons at Oklahoma, so let's start out with his freshman year. He had 5 sacks. He had 37 total tackles, 8 of which being for a loss. And then to come into his sophomore year there, he had 28 solo tackles, 38 total tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. And then his junior season, or his final season there at Oklahoma, he had 16 solo tackles, 23 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 5.5 sacks. It is notable to mention that he only played in 6 games that season, whereas he played 12 his sophomore year and then 14 his freshman year. So he's coming off of his most productive season was actually his junior year, even though the stats aren't as good because it was a shorter season for him. He's coming off of a very productive career for Oklahoma, and I think this is a productive, very good prospect for us moving forward. So the exciting thing here, as you look across the chart, we have our veteran great starters in Matt Judon, Dontta Hightower, Jawan Bentley, and then Kyle Van Noy. We have some younger players that are good enough to start right now, Chase Winovich, Raekwon McMillan, to name a few. And then we have that group of guys that are either rookies or were rookies last season in Ronnie Perkins, Issac Jeanins, and then Josh Uche, bringing that young youth and future starter caliber players. All of these players, there's not a single player on this list for the linebackers that I have listed that does not have the potential to start at some point in their career. All of these guys should eventually be starters at this point in their careers. Raekwon McMillan is the only question mark in that respect. But outside of that, all of these guys should be eventual starters or are very great veteran starters right now. That's why I think our linebacker position is the most talented position on our team, and I think it's the most talented and in general the best linebacker group in the entire NFL. From top to bottom, there isn't a weak link in this entire linebacker group, which is insane. A few years ago, I remember the linebacker and defensive line positions being our biggest weakness, and it has turned into a strength over the last few years. I'm very excited to see this. Let me know if you agree with my depth chart here. Let me know what you would change. Let me know what you disagree with or agree with in the comments down below. Also, be sure to smash the like button. It helps that YouTube algorithm a ton. Also, leaving any comment of any sort helps as well. And be sure to subscribe if you like Patriots-related content, as I'm bringing daily uploads to this channel, trying to grow this channel significantly. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.